Hey guys, you may or may not know this, but I've actually bred vampire crabs many times in the fish room. I had multiple babies. I think at one point we had 20 babies and they all grew up into adults. We sold all of those. We actually ended up selling the breeding stock as well. Now I'm back to wanting to breed these vampire crabs again because I walked into a store and happened to find some. Let's go take a look at where I picked up these vampire crabs. I am not gonna lie, they have an absolute amazing assortment of fish. Look at this black angelfish right here. This may be something we have to come back and get. This thing is absolutely amazing. The problem we have is we don't have a tank for this to go in. Larger angelfish like this are usually aggressive when you put them in with other angelfish, so he'd have to go in by himself. We don't have a place for him right now, but we may have to come back for this guy. I really do like their setup. I mean, they've got this waterfall coming down into this tank. We actually want to build something like this in the house, which would be amazing. Look at this. This is Bob. And Bob is a giant red Oscar, which we have some of those at home too, right? We have all kinds of different tetra and all kinds of things. Now, in this tank right down here, which we're not going to really get into, this is for another video because they have something in here that we're going to need. We're here for something specific that they have up front, which I did not realize until I got here. So let's go check that out. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into building this setup to breed these vampire crabs, and we will be breeding them for profit, as the title says. So you can get about $15 a piece for a juvenile to, we'll say, a teenage vampire crab, and you can sell these online. You can sell them to local fish stores. I ended up posting on a couple of groups on Facebook and sold them all through that Facebook group. It's a pretty simple process, but $15 a piece for not a whole lot of work is a lot of money. So 15 times 20 is $300 that I made. Actually, I made a little more than that because I sold the actual breeding pair as well. But I mean, my total investment was like $45. And then I'm just reusing materials. So that's kind of the plan for this again, is to go ahead and produce some offspring and get these guys sold. I'm going to show you how I do my setup. You know, I'm sure that people are going to say that I need to do it differently, but it worked for me. We produced quite well, and I'll make a series of these videos going forward again, and let's see if we can be successful with this. So let's go ahead and start with our setup. So for our setup, we're actually going to be using basically a turtle bin that I bought at PetSmart on clearance, and it works perfect because you have a land mass back here and then a ramp down into a water section, but you really want like an 80 to 20 ratio of land to water, and this doesn't quite give you that. It's actually the reverse. It's 80 to 20 of water, and we're going to go ahead and, we'll say, retrofit this to an 80% land mass to a 20% water mass inside of this tub. And what we're going to be using to do that is we're going to be using some egg crate light diffuser. We're going to be using a heat gun and some scissors to create that land mass. And then we're also going to be using some pea gravel in order to help with that. So with that, let's go ahead and get into how we're going to build this and make this land mass much larger inside of this tub. This will be the first process because we need to get this foundation set so we can go ahead and start moving into getting this thing filled with some dirt, some plants, and all kinds of things. Let's get that started. I want to start by taking this egg crate, and I need to cut it to the width of this area right here. Like, we need a piece of egg crate that'll fit the width of this right here. There are many other tools you can use to cut this stuff, but scissors seem to work just fine, and you're just gonna use them to clip this right across. Well, now that we have this piece cut, we're gonna go ahead and make this fit to become a land area inside of this setup. And the way that we wanna do this is we wanna first position it to the height we need it, which is going to be about right here. And we're going to go ahead and mark this section right here. We'll just mark it with a stick. It's not that big of a deal. It's not perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. And what we're going to be doing I believe the air raid sirens are currently going off. Yeah, that's loud. Just kidding, they're not air raid sirens. Those are outdoor warning sirens for tornadoes and severe weather. They test them on the first Wednesday of every month. And well, today's the first Wednesday because it is September the 6th. But anyway, back to what we were doing now that we're not getting bombed. It's basically this line right across here. And what we're gonna do is lose our position because I just took the stick off. I'm gonna go ahead and plug in this heat gun. And these heat guns are super cheap at Harbor Freight, I think is where I got this one. This thing does like 1,000 degrees or something. And what I'm gonna do is just start applying heat evenly distributed along that specific line. And if you notice, this stuff bends pretty easily. We'll hold it in place, and now we have like a nice little bend in there. So let's go check to see if the bend is accurate and where we need it. And it fits in there pretty perfectly. So now we have this little ramp system kind of in here. What we want to do is go ahead and backfill this with some sort of media that can actually make a structure. And what we're going to use for that is pea gravel. This pea gravel is actually pre-cycled and has some beneficial bacteria in it. We're not going to be using this. We're going to be using some new clean gravel. So let's go ahead and get that washed now. This bucket has a hole or a crack in the bottom, which makes it nice because it's easy to wash gravel that way, because all that dirty water just kind of falls out of the bottom. So what we want to do is go ahead and put our piece of light diffuser in here. Pour this gravel right over top, start spreading it out. Now if you notice, we have a higher area that slopes down. This will become a aquatic area, so water will come up to about here. So this entire area right here will be water. This will be land, that up there will be land, and everything will be good. So with that, let's go ahead and start working on our section up here. For this section up here, we need a drainage layer. So we're gonna start with a nice base of rock, something that can hold some water. Come in with some weed barrier to separate our drainage from our soil. I have some pre-mixed jungle mix here that we're gonna use. We're gonna take this jungle mix and start pushing this up into these corners and just getting this mat laid down. And like I said, this is just to separate the drainage from the soil. All right, now that we have all of the soil in here, it has a nice drainage layer. So as we water plants and things that are up here, that water will soak down into that rock and then evaporate back out of the system. This will not be a closed setup, so the water will evaporate and this stuff will have to be watered normally. But we have our land area over here. We have our aquatic area over here. We're about to fill that with some more of this pea gravel. All right, let's give this gravel one final rinse and we'll get this scape completed and see these little things that we're gonna put in here. Well guys, this thing is set where it's going to go permanently. We have all of our rock in here. We have our new little land mass. We have our dirt area up here, and we need to grab a couple of elements to go in here. And where we're gonna get this stuff is out of some of our isopod bins, because we're actually gonna make this thing bioactive as well. Let's go pick out this stuff. So we'll need some cork. Make sure there's no isopods in there, and there's not. So we'll grab some of that cork. We need a little bit of leaf litter. We'll grab some of this. That's good from this setup. We also need a little pea gravel and a little small amount of mulch. A few pieces of frog bit, some hornwort. And of course, let's get down in here. Get us a nice big amount of this Christmas moss. We'll also grab some duckweed in a minute. Right here is a golden pothos that's actually been grown underwater. So we're gonna put that in there. And then we also have a rabbit's foot fern and some pillow moss. And now let's go ahead and fill this thing up with water before we get the planting done. So we do have our little land area here that we built, but I don't really think that it allows the water to be deep enough. So we're gonna go ahead and add some rocks to this to just give it some more depth up in the back for them to get out of the water. So let's go ahead and get an internal filter in here that'll help filter this water for these crabs. And we're just gonna stick this right up here to the side. Get that thing plugged in and going. It's a very light filter. It's not overly powerful, which is good for this setup. We don't want a lot of flow. So now that this filter's going, let's go ahead and get this water dechlorinated, and we're going to use some API Aqua Essential. So now that the filter's in, the water is dechlorinated, let's go ahead and work on getting this filter hid. That's simplistic enough to hide the filter. Little remnants of some anacris we'll throw in there. We have some of this Christmas moss. We're going to take this Christmas moss and we're going to kind of place it up here underneath this rock. These crabs will actually eat this Christmas moss as well. I want to go ahead and plant some of our plants here. And like I said, this is a fully grown underwater golden pothos that we're going to put in here. And I'm just going to simply bury the root system into this gravel just to hold it down. We have a little red crypt that we'll put in here as well. There's a little Java fern baby. And then we'll also throw in this hornwort. Let's go ahead and focus on planting this as well, and we're going to start by adding a little bit of cork along this edge here, just like this. We're also going to actually take that up and we're going to put a small amount of Christmas moss hanging underneath this cork, because these crabs will actually eat this Christmas moss and then they can also use it to climb. They are excellent climbers, guys. So remember that when you're putting together a setup, if you decide to put together a setup, because they are in fact excellent climbers. We're going to go ahead and add some more cork in here. Christmas moss up into here as well. Actually, before we add that cork, let's go ahead and plant our rabbit's foot fern. We're just going to plant this thing kind of like right here along the edge where it kind of overhangs our cork here. We'll put some cork here, and then we have some pillow moss that we're going to put in here. Put that right up in here. Now let's go ahead and sprinkle some of this rock around just to make it more naturalistic. We're going to hit it with a little bit of mulch. We just want to maintain the moisture, and then of course some leaf litter too. All right guys, well we're going to go ahead and add a couple more things to this setup, and one of those things is going to be some duckweed. And this duckweed, oh my gosh, look at that, a little orange scaber isopod, because we took this piece of cork out of the orange scaber setup and obviously there were isopods in it, which is great because we want this thing to be bioactive anyway. So we'll go ahead and put this little guy right up here and let him survive, because we don't want him in the water. But we're gonna go ahead and get this duckweed in here today, and this stuff will look great in here, just like that. And we actually may add a little bit more. So one other thing I want to do is go ahead and add some rock up here in this landing area, and we're just going to use some pea gravel for that. And what we'll do is just kind of sprinkle this stuff out here. Perfect. So I think with that, guys, this setup is complete. The only thing we have left really is just getting these crabs in here. Actually, not true. So one more element we're gonna add is actually gonna be a heater, and this is a simple flat heater, and we're putting this in here because of the fact that these guys are in fact tropical creatures and are going to need warm water. This water is actually already as warm as the container that they're in, so they're good and acclimated. And this is a slow heat flat heater that's only like about 15 watts, so it'll be perfect. It's like a betta heater, so it'll be perfect to heat this water to the right temperature. These guys come from the forests of Java, Indonesia, and it's quite warm and humid there, so this is an actual perfect setup to allow these guys to reproduce. So with that heater being in here, we are now completely done, with the exception of making this thing fully bioactive and putting in our little vampire crabs. Let's go gather up the creatures we need to make this bioactive, and then let's get these crabs in here today. For this to be a bioactive setup, we're gonna need to take some of these isopods from this isopod breeding culture, and to find these things, we just simply have to, oh, look at that, look right there. There's two right there. Those are big mamas. We're gonna leave those there. Those may be a breeding pair. I don't know if they pair up. We'll just assume that they pair up. Let's see here. It'll be all up in this leaf. Oh, there's one right there. And we already have a couple in there, so we're not gonna take a lot. Oh, don't crawl off there, little buddy. And there he goes. So I think with this one we'll be okay, because that'll put 3 in the container, which will take care of any poop that is left behind by these crabs, as well as any dead plant material, and they'll reproduce. So let's get this guy in there. And there he goes, running around looking for a place to go. Next thing we're going to be putting in here are springtails. And these springtails will actually reproduce in here as well. And what they'll do is they're going to keep the mold under control and any mildew and things like that. They'll completely keep that stuff under control for us. And the nice thing is too, is these crabs will actually eat those guys. So when babies come, the babies will eat it. All right, guys. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get these crabs in here. We're gonna start with, first off, this little stick right here. We're gonna go ahead and leave this thing in here. We'll float it like right there, just so that's there for them to get up in and out of the water if they need to. And he is off in there, looking around. He's found himself a place to hide. And now for the female. And she is gone. Alright, well, now that these guys have been in here for a little while and made their way around from the water to the land area and have kind of figured it out, we have another one right there. We're gonna go ahead and feed these guys. Well, with that, guys, hopefully you went on to enjoy this video today and you enjoyed seeing us set up this bin system for these little vampire crabs. I will make sure I keep you updated on the vampire crabs. It does take a little while for them to get kind of used to their setup and start breeding, but eventually it will in fact happen without a doubt. So make sure you stay tuned, and if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that now, as well as follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Links to both are down below. As well as visit freshwaterscrub.com and use the code CRAB for 10% off all of your orders until the 30th of September 2023. And with that, guys, thank you very much. I am truly grateful that you take your time out of your day to go through and watch my videos. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and hey, we will see you next time.